Hello, all, and welcome to this episode of Talking Taboo podcast. I'm your host, Divyansh Sharma, and in this episode, we are going to talk about the taboos associated with sex and porn in our society. We have with us today Miss Cindy Gallup, a woman with an extremely inspiring story and a unique vision, and probably one of the very first few people who have forayed into the sex tech industry. She has designed a platform to reorient the younger generation raised on porn and change the kind of conversations that we have around sex. She is the founder of the famous company called Make Love Not Porn and is an active advocate of open sexual conversation. Thank you so much, Cindy ma'am, for agreeing to do an episode with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, ma'am, just to get the conversation started, why do you think is sex such a big taboo in our society? What do you think is the problem really? And more importantly, what are the implications of having such reluctance towards talking about honestly about sex on young people?
So, first of all, Divyansh, to answer the first part of your question, I am regularly asked by interviewers something along the same lines. So, Cindy, why do you think we're so repressed around sex as a society? And I'm asked that question so often that I now have my answer down pat. 3 reasons. Reason number 1, centuries of repression, religion, socio-cultural dynamics in every single country in the world. Everything we're talking about applies not only to India, but to everywhere else in the world. Reason number 2, the patriarchy. Because historically, every institution, including government and religion, has been male-dominated. We as women have never been enabled to bring our lens to bear on human sexuality, and the world is a poorer place for it. And reason number 3, very straightforwardly, there are not enough people like me. And what I mean by that is the world makes it extraordinarily difficult to innovate and disrupt social narratives around sex. Many people have tried to and given up. We need many more people like me who will not give up no matter what. And, what I and my fellow sex educators, sex tech founders are doing is critically important because we transform the entire world when we do this one very simple thing: talk openly and honestly about sex.
That's quite important, actually. We really could do better with more people of your vision and the kind of mindset that we won't give up. That's probably neatly segues into my next question as to how do you actually go about normalizing sex, since you are also one of the first people, as we have mentioned, to have ventured into disruption of sex through the use of technology. How do you think do we actually go about breaking the silence, the taboo associated with sexual experiences?
So this is what I have spent the past 11 years of my life doing. So I launched my startup, Make Love Not Porn, 11 years ago at TED, born out of my direct personal experience dating younger men, and realizing through dating younger men that I was encountering the convergence of 2 things. And I stress this dual convergence because most people think it's only one thing. I realized I was experiencing what happens when today's total freedom of access to hardcore porn online meets our society's equally total reluctance to talk openly and honestly about sex. When those 2 things converge, porn becomes sex education by default, in not a good way. And so I launched Make Love Not Porn back in 2009 as a very simple, tiny, clunky website that was just words, and the construct was porn world versus real world. Here's what happens in the porn world, here's what really happens in the real world. The entire world responded to my TED Talk 11 years ago. I realized I'd uncovered a huge global social issue. And that was when I turned Make Love Not Porn into makelovenotporn.tv. And what Make Love Not Porn is doing today is socializing sex. We have this one very simple mission to help make it easier for every single person in the world to talk openly and honestly about sex. And that's because, as our tagline says, we are pro-sex, pro-porn, pro-knowing the difference. The issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. And so what Make Love Not Porn is designed to be is the world's first entirely user-generated, human-curated social sex video sharing platform. We are what Facebook would be if Facebook allowed you to socially, sexually self-express, which sadly it doesn't. We are socializing and normalizing sex, making it easier for everybody to talk about in order to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. We call ourselves the social sex revolution. The revolutionary part is not the sex, it's the social.
Right. I'm sure our audience is going wow at this moment. And I would have to, if I had not read about it from before, because this is actually super interesting how sexual self-expression and self-identification has been muffled from so long that we don't really think about it in our daily lives because of the way we have just been, told that it's immoral and it's out of the line to talk about it. So why don't just to retrace back to a few steps, why don't we sort of move on with this issue of pornography? So what Make Love Not Porn does is to differentiate in some way from pornography. So why do you think what are these harmful impacts of porn that you talk about, and what is this implication of the unrealistic sexual portrayal that porn does on people?
Right. So, Divyansh, it's important that we are very, very clear about one thing. As I said earlier, the issue isn't porn. The issue is that we don't talk about sex in the real world. Many, many issues are laid at porn's door that should be laid at society's. And I'm going to explain to you and your audience exactly why talking openly and honestly about sex is so critical and why that is the issue and not porn. So, because we do not talk about sex, it is an area of rampant insecurity for every single one of us. We all get vulnerable when we get naked. Sexual egos are very fragile. People therefore find it bizarrely difficult to talk about sex with the people they're actually having it with while they're actually having it. Because in that situation, you're terrified that if you say anything at all about what is going on, if you comment on the action in any way at all, you will potentially hurt the other person's feelings, you will put them off you, you will derail the encounter, you'll potentially derail the entire relationship, and yet at the same time, you want to please your partner. You want to make them happy. Everybody wants to be good in bed. Nobody knows exactly what that means. And so you will seize your cues on how to do that from anywhere you can. And if the only cues you have ever seen are in porn, because your parents didn't talk to you about sex, because your school didn't teach you, because your friends aren't honest, those are the cues you're going to take to not very good effect. And so all of this is solved when we talk openly and honestly about sex. And I want to drill into that in a bit more detail when it comes to what we are doing at Make Love Not Porn. Because we are pioneering a whole new category on the internet, which is social sex. If porn is the Hollywood movie, Make Love Not Porn is the real world sex documentary. So at Make Love Not Porn, anybody from anywhere in the world can submit to us videos of themselves having real world sex. But as I said, we're very clear what we mean by this. We're not porn. We are social sex. And so, social sex videos on Make Love Not Porn are not about performing for the camera. They're simply about doing what you already do on every other social platform. Capture what goes on in the real world as it happens spontaneously in all its funny, messy, awkward, comical, wonderful, beautiful, fabulous real-world humanness. We curate to make sure of that. Our curators watch every single video submitted from beginning to end. We do not publish it unless it's real. And by the way, we have a revenue sharing business model. Our members pay to subscribe, rent and stream social sex videos. Half the income goes to our contributors, whom we call our Make Love Not Porn stars. But here's why social sex is so critically important. Because porn is purely and simply masturbation material. We are not just that. We are that too, by the way, very happy to be that. But we are many more socially beneficial things on top of that. So, for example, social sex is enormously reassuring because we celebrate real-world everything. Real-world bodies, real-world hair, real-world penis size, real-world breast size. You can talk body positivity all you like. You can preach self-love. Nothing makes you feel great about your own body like watching people who are nobody's idea of aspirational body types getting turned on by each other, desiring each other, having a bloody amazing time in bed. Our mantra is everybody is beautiful when they're having real-world sex, and they really are. Then we're also reassuring because we celebrate the accidents, the awkwardness, the messiness. If you only learn about sex from porn, porn teaches you that sex is a performance. Nothing must go wrong. Oh my God, it did. How excruciatingly embarrassing. I can never speak about this to anybody ever. Whereas we go, if you can't laugh at yourselves in bed, when can you? And so in our videos, ridiculous things happen because this is the real world. And then importantly, we celebrate real-world emotion, love, intimacy, feelings. Our members write to us and our Make Love Not Porn stars, and they say things like, one man wrote and said, the sex that video was incidental. I want what you guys have. I saw the way you looked at each other. I saw the way your eyes met. I hope one day I can meet somebody that I will have all of that with. We get very, very moving emails. So we are many more things beyond pure masturbation material.
Definitely, actually, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you don't mind, I'll just finish by saying, here's our overarching goal for Make Love Not Porn, because as I mentioned earlier, when I say that, our mission is this one very simple thing: make it easier to talk about sex. Because we don't do that, people don't get how massively, profoundly, socially transformative that would be. And everything I'm about to say applies especially to India. So I designed Make Love Not Porn around my own beliefs and philosophies, one of which is that everything in life starts with you and your values. So I regularly ask people this question: what are your sexual values? And nobody can ever answer me because we're not taught to think like that. Our parents bring us up to have good manners, a work ethic, a sense of responsibility, accountability. Nobody ever brings us up to behave well in bed. But they should, because in bed, values like empathy, sensitivity, generosity, kindness, honesty, respect are as important as those values are in every other area of our lives where we're actively taught to exercise them. And so this is my vision for the world when Make Love Not Porn is funded to operate at scale. And as I said, this vision is especially important for India. Parents will bring their children up openly to have good sexual values and good sexual behavior in the same way that they currently bring them up to have good values and behavior in every other area of life. We will therefore cease to bring up rapists, because the only way that you end rape culture, and this really is the only way, is by inculcating in society and openly talked about, operated, promoted, and very importantly, aspired to gold standard of what constitutes good sexual values and good sexual behavior. When we do that, we also end Me Too. We end sexual harassment, sexual abuse, violence, all areas where the perpetrators currently rely on the fact that we do not talk about sex to ensure victims will never speak up, never go to the authorities, never tell anybody. When we end that, we massively empower women and girls worldwide. When we do that, we create a far happier world for everybody, including men. And when we do that, we are one step closer to world peace. I talk about Make Love Not Porn as my attempt to bring about world peace, and I'm not joking.
Wow, that's actually quite interesting that, all of these problems can end just by making or reframing the conversations that we have around sex. And definitely that point is quite valid, that shame and embarrassment associated with sex is something that is actually responsible for the kind of rape culture era that we live in. So, ma'am, now just to go to Make Love Not Porn, how has your progress been thus far in the kind of viewership and the kind of response? Now, I ask this in the specific context of the people who may be utterly reluctant to switch from free HD porn to real life portrayal, which a lot of us would also, by the way, call dirty or unattractive uh, sex, where bodies that are sexually unattractive are having sex in front of unfiltered cameras. So, how do you think have people responded to the Make Love Not Porn website?
Oh, phenomenally well. From the moment we launched in our original makelovenotporn.com iteration 11 years ago, and then as makelovenotporn.tv 8 years ago, the entire world has responded positively. My only difficulties, and it's important to contextualize my response to your question about growth. The one thing I didn't realize was that I would fight an enormous battle every day to build this business. Essentially, every piece of business infrastructure other tech startups take for granted, we can't, because the small print always says no adult content. And this is
Right.
faced across every area of the business. And it's also extraordinarily challenging to get funded. My biggest problem raising funding is the social dynamic I call fear of what other people will think. Because it is never about what the investor I'm talking to thinks. When you understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, nobody can argue with it. The business case is clear. The issue is always fear of what other people think, which operates around sex, unlike any other area. So I'm saying all that to say that, the very fact that Make Love Not Porn is still here 8 years later from launching as a business is extraordinary in a world where 70% of all startups fail within the first 5 years. That gives you some idea of the traction we have, okay? Because our growth is entirely organic. We have no funding to do paid for marketing. So our growth is driven by two things: media coverage and search. And I'll tell you what I find especially interesting, by the way. Right now, India is our 6th highest traffic source at Make Love Not Porn. India is consistently in our top 10 traffic sources, despite the fact we do zero active promotion in India. We're not on the ground in India. We have no money in India. We do nothing in India to promote ourselves. India is constantly in our top 10 source of traffic. We are not competing with porn, okay? Our competition is not porn, it's Facebook and YouTube, or rather it would be if they allowed you to socially, sexually self-express. We are a complement and a counterpoint to porn, and one that does not exist anywhere else. As I said, if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, we're the real world documentary. Okay, so we're not competing with porn. We are something you watch in addition to porn in order to glimpse what sex is like in the real world. One of the things I say regularly is that the reason amateur is the biggest growth sector in porn has nothing to do with porn. It has everything to do with the fact that everybody wants to know what everybody else is really doing in bed, and nobody does until now, because finally at Make Love Not Porn, we're showing them. Secondly, everybody wants to see what everybody else is really doing in bed. And I can tell you also that it is a massively erroneous assumption to think that people only want to watch attractive people having sex. Who defines attractive? our mantra at Make Love Not Porn is that everybody is beautiful when they're having real world sex, and they really are. There is nothing more beautiful than seeing two people, or by the way, one person, because of many solo Make Love Not Porn stars, or more than two people, because we have threesome videos, etc., who are massively turned on by each other and desiring each other, regardless of what they look like.
Yeah, so definitely the idea of socializing sex is something that can actually uplift the quality of your life, and we should be very thankful to you, ma'am, for doing this for all of us. If you may have some words on what other kind of experiences that people have shared with you as to how this idea of a social sex revolution and the kind of better communication has impacted or changed their lives.
Sure. So first of all, Divyansh, here's a really interesting thing. Our Make Love Not Porn stars, our contributors, tell us that socially sharing their real world sex has been as transformative for them and their relationships as socially sharing everything else has been for the world at large. So we have many solo Make Love Not Porn stars. So these are men and women who have filmed themselves masturbating. And by the way, the vast majority of our Make Love Not Porn stars had never filmed themselves doing anything sexual before ever. They're doing this for us because they believe in our social mission. So these are men and women who have filmed themselves in this very intimate act for the first time ever and shared it on our platform to be watched by complete strangers. They tell us that doing that made them love themselves more. It enhanced their sexual sense of self, their sexual self-esteem. Couples tell us that doing this transformed their relationship. Because when you decide to film yourselves having sex, you have to talk about it. And when you talk about it, doesn't matter how long you've been together, the conversation goes places it's never ever gone before. You know, couples say to us, we thought that we were open. Doing this just took our relationship to a whole new level. So that's how this is transformative for our contributors. Our members who watch our social sex videos tell us, so we hear from many couples saying, you saved our marriage. You know, we haven't had sex in years. And because with social sex, it's okay for the husband to say to the wife to say to the husband, oh, you know, I came across this website, Make Love Not Porn. Why don't we check it out together? And then they write and go, kaboom, best sex since our wedding night. You know, and what couples tell us is that, you know, because we are social sex, you know, one couple said, you know, your videos normalize having a conversation about sex. You know, it becomes like when we talk about your videos, it's just like talking about something we watched on Netflix, you know, or on television. You know, that's how natural and normal it is. We've heard from victims of rape, sexual abuse, assault, and by the way, we've heard from both female and male victims who tell us that we help them reclaim their bodies and their sexuality. We help them enjoy sex again after those horrific experiences. We've heard from cancer survivors, you know, who say, you know, you helped me come back from cancer and begin enjoying my body again. We have a Make Love Not Porn baby. So one couple wrote to us and they said, you know, we've been trying for a child for ages. We just got back from the doctor. The scan confirmed what we suspected. Our child was conceived the night that we watched this particular video on Make Love Not Porn. They said, we're not going to say we could have done it without you, but you really helped. So we are helping our community in all sorts of wonderful ways.
Wow, that's quite telling, actually. There are more advantages than we could have thought that come out by humanizing sexual experience. And yeah. So before we end this session, if we could talk a bit more about the sex tech industry and how you found yourself on this off-beaten path. And this is actually something that is both socially beneficial but also financially lucrative, as you like to put it. So in the context of the kind of hindrances that you have had, which you told us earlier about the kind of investing problems, how do you see the future of this industry, the kind of disruption in sexual experience that tech has brought?
Sure. So, you know, I actually began defining, pioneering, and championing sex tech 6 years ago. And I did that because of my enormous difficulty finding investors. I realized that I had to define and legitimize my own category. So I literally wrote the definition of sex tech. If you Google sex tech, I am result 1 on page 1. And sex tech is any form of technology or tech venture designed to innovate, disrupt, and enhance in any area of human sexuality and human sexual experience. And, I began speaking at tech conferences all around the world on why the next big thing in tech is disrupting sex. And, at base level, that was because, I felt if I say this loudly enough, often enough, in enough places, people will start to believe it. But that's because sex tech represents literally the final frontier of tech. This is the next $1 trillion category in tech. Because precisely for the reasons we've been discussing, nobody has been encouraged to, start sex tech ventures. And so, when I speak at tech conferences now, I say to the audience, I'm going to ask you to do something that, nobody else ever has, start a sex tech venture. Because just like any other area, this is where entrepreneurs are driven by their own personal experiences to create wonderful solutions. And by the way, especially female sex tech founders. So I would encourage all your listeners to go and check out womenofsextech.com. I'm a founder member. We began Women of Sex Tech in New York several years ago. We now have chapters all around the world. But this is where you will see all of the amazing female founders starting a huge range of sex tech ventures. And by the way, there is huge opportunity in India as well, where I'm absolutely looking for investors to launch Make Love Not Porn India. This opportunity exists all around the world. But it really is, such a potentially huge and lucrative sector because we are talking about a universal human experience. And we are talking about the universal human experience that everyone is most messed up about. And so there is a huge opportunity, again, for sex tech to bring solutions to all of that in just as innovative and disruptive ways as you see in every other tech sector. And so I would really encourage everybody listening to this to think about how you can contribute to the Indian sex tech industry and start your own sex tech venture.
Absolutely. That's an industry that has an enormous potential, and it's also a totally amazing way to break the taboo and change the light in which we view sex today. So on that note, thank you so much, Cindy ma'am, for appearing on our show today. And we hope that our conversation helped people to realize the importance of being more honest about these conversations. And when literally all of us are involved in the act of sex, but no one really talks about it, I think mainstreaming this conversation can be both mentally and physically better for all of us. So we hope that this is a start in that direction. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Talking Taboo podcast. If you like our idea and want to support it, do follow us on Instagram at We Talk Taboo and visit our Facebook page at Talking Taboo. A simple share and support will go a long way in mainstreaming these conversations and breaking the taboos that we seek to fight. To stay up to date on the show, do follow us on the platform of your choice. We hope you liked this episode and see you in the next one.